Ladies and gentlemen, that will bring us to our next presenter. And while we're off to a great start in keeping the ball rolling, we mentioned at the top of the show we had 7 expert traders of the highest caliber. And our next presenter studied music at the Berklee College of Music and Boston Conservatory. He began trading stocks in 2001 and has learned the art of futures trading. He's been trading for over 20 years and now considered an expert teacher and trader of the news. Here to present Trade FANG earnings report with futures is Lee Goldstein of 10minutetrades.com. Welcome back to Traders Corner, Lee.
Hey Rob, how are you? Let me know if you can hear me.
Um, Loud and clear, brother. Always good.
Very good. Thanks for the invitation, and I'm glad to be here. So I get started because I guess we're feels like time's going fast today. So I'm going to start right up. And thanks once again for inviting us. So I
Absolutely no problem, brother.
okay. So a lot of you know our company, 10 Minute Trades, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. And I always love seeing how many people are here that I know. And I'm glad to see there's a lot of people I don't know. So that's a good thing because that means you're going to be exposed to a totally different and new method of trading. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. So the the irony is that we are here to trade earnings with futures. So years ago, let me start by just shooting through a couple of my slides. So we're going to trade the FANG stocks, and I'm laughing here because we prepared this setup so fast that we spelled FANG wrong. So I'm going to have to. My boss is listening, and he created the slides. It's FAANG. So I just want to make it clear. We got Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google are the FANG stocks. And actually, folks, we're going to have to change what we call this method of trading. It's now the MANG stocks because it's not Facebook anymore. It's Meta. So they changed their name. They kind of ruined all the fun in the name that it's called. We're still going to call it the FANG stocks, but those are the main tech stocks that I want to talk to you today about a methodology that we discovered, a way to trade futures on Ninjas Trader and trade the major tech stock earnings. So my name is Lee Goldstein. I'm the trading director at 10 Minute Trades. Just remember, please, you have to have a disclosure. It is possible to lose money trading futures. I'm not a financial advisor, and what I'm going to discuss with you today is for educational purposes. So if you do trade, trade carefully and trade smart. So a lot of people don't know what we do, and we trade on a schedule. We trade a methodology called appointment based trading, and it's called ABT trading. And it's totally a time based method of trading. So, in other words, we're making an appointment with the market. Almost everything that we do is based around making an appointment and trading on that appointment. So, in other words, I'm not getting up at 6 in the morning and watching, oil start to move at 8, and I'm not watching the gold open anymore at 8:20 or the bond open. No, although if you think about it, the gold open, the bond open, they would fit our methodology. That's an event that takes place at a certain time. So that might be something you could trade using our method. But I'm getting up and I have an appointment and I'm using an appointment, a specific moment in time. And here's a quick example. I create a weekly schedule and then that whole week I'm working off this weekly schedule. So just to give you an idea, this week is one of our scheduled trading weeks. If you notice, Tuesday, April 18th, 3:30 in our trade room, Netflix is a family money trade. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Trading earnings with futures. So years ago, we were trading an end of the day NASDAQ trade, and it took place around 4 o'clock. And we noticed at the end of the day, certain times of the year, not all the time, that there was some very strong, powerful moves in the NAS. And we finally realized, hey, you know what? We're doing our trade setup. And then right after our setup, the big tech earnings are taking place. And it's causing these spectacular moves in the NASDAQ. And it just got me thinking, and I get really fanatical when I get an idea. And I figured, you know what? If the market's moving that much on some of these earnings, then I'll bet we could figure out a way to trade them every quarter. And that's exactly what we did. So we first started out and we had no tools at all to trade the earnings. We were basically just throwing the stocks, the not even the stocks. I was throwing the NQ futures on the chart, and we were looking at the NQ futures. I was using, I think I was using Yahoo's finance website. I didn't have real-time stock information, and today I want to teach you some of the tools that we're using to actually trade those earnings. So let me just go through a couple of our slides so you understand totally what I'm talking about. So what actually triggers an appointment-based trade? You've got high impact in economic reports like a jobs report, a GDP report. You might have end of day movement. You know, the market closes and you might have a very big movement in the end of the day when the market gets ready to close. Speakers cause movement, tweeting cause movement. And then finally, big company earnings reports. They cause movement in the markets and they vary. And what I want to talk about today is how to crush those big earnings reports using futures. So let me show you what I'm talking about and how we started to do it. So before I actually show you some trades, I just want to explain a little bit about how the concept works. So the first thing we're doing is obviously we're putting our charts on the screen. Now, when we put our charts on the screen, almost always we're using a type of setup that creates a bracket, okay? And we bracket the current price. So if you look at this yellow candle right here, that symbolizes the current price at that moment. And then our X up on the top there is a bracket above the current price. And then an X below is a bracket below the current price. And basically, what happens in a trade of the style that we're trading is the event we're trading, the news gets released, the earnings get released in this case, and it causes the NQ to shoot up or down, pushing us into the trade. So that's the simple explanation of how we do this. But there's a process to it. So the first catch is this: when you're trading major economic reports like the US jobs report or FOMC statements or FOMC minutes or the CPI report, did you ever notice that those reports, they're released at a very specific time? So we are able to use our software and to come up with a setup that allows us to trade those reports at a very specific time. Let me see if I can show you something that happened this week. So in other words, this week we had a very volatile event, and that event was this week's CPI report. Okay.
Okay, good
So I
morning,
want to
everyone.
show
Welcome
you
to the
exactly what
Trading
I'm
Just
talking
One
about when I say A, we're going to make an appointment with the market. B, we're going to create a bracket and put our brackets on the chart. And then when the news comes out, things working the way we want, we're going to get pulled into a trade. So last week, during that CPI report, we know it's volatile. We know the brokers are raising margin when they want to, in order to trade this report. And we still have a setup that lets us trade this report and profit on it. Those little X's are the orders that we put on the chart 1 second before that CPI came out. And boom, watch what happens. The news comes out. I was trading bonds on that report and I made money on that report. Now, and I made over $500 on that report trading bonds. The same concept takes place with earnings, but earnings are a little bit trickier. And I do want to tell everybody out there, I will answer all your questions. I'll make sure that I stop and answer all the questions before we're done because I see questions are rolling in already. So with earnings, it's a little bit trickier because the companies that release their earnings, they don't release earnings at a very specific time. They'll say before the market opens, or they might say after the market close. So we had to come up with some methods of being able to trade while we wait for those earnings to come out. So a couple of different things happened. When you do a lot of research and when you spend your time studying events, then that helps you to set up your trades. So we don't spend our time dealing with Ichimoku Cloud or Elliott Waves or any of the other big time indicators. We'll look at highs and lows of the day, but instead of spending all our time looking at those other indicators, we're spending our time studying the event. So, in other words, when I'm looking at Tesla, for instance, and the way that they do their earnings, I'm going back in time, I'm studying previous Tesla movement, and I'm trying to come up with a setup based on a, what time does Tesla release their earnings? B, is it going to move the market I want to trade, i.e., the NQ, enough to do a setup? C, is it going to be safe? And are we going to be able to use our software to automate the entry in the trade? So that's a whole bunch of questions that we are asking ourselves. By studying the movement that Tesla makes, we can come up with a system to trade Tesla's earnings. But we're also using a collection of important tools. So one major tool that I use that if you're interested in earnings, whether you trade them the way that we trade them or you're just interested in earnings, I highly recommend go to the website earningswhispers.com, completely free. When you initially log in to when you initially just go to their website, they have this great little collection of all of the upcoming important earnings. So you could just click, for instance, on Tesla, and bingo, you'll know when Tesla's earnings are coming out, Wednesday, April 19th, and they give an approximate time. But the key for using Earnings Whispers to help us trade these types of events is you click on the calendar on Earnings Whispers, and then when you click on the calendar, for instance, next week, Monday is a little bit slow. Let's go to Tuesday because that's the day we're going to trade. So if you click on Tuesday, if you notice over here on the right, you get a BMO before market open, and it lists all of the companies that are releasing their releasing their earnings before the market opens. So for us, we'll study those results. Goldman Sachs, Johnson and Johnson, those are possible companies that they may affect the market when they release their earnings, but they probably won't affect the NQ. They will probably affect the YM, maybe the ES on a secondary. But I'm not really here yet to talk about Goldman Sachs and Johnson and Johnson. When you go to aftermarket close AMC and you scroll down and look at who's releasing their earnings, well, one of my favorites is Netflix. We've been trading Netflix earnings now for years, going back years. Let me show you the last Netflix trade that I took, but I showed you briefly our weekly schedule. Netflix is considered a family money trade. So for us, what's a family money trade? Again, years ago, I was trading in our trade room, and I would always laughingly say to our members, hey, you know what? This is a trade. If I was trading my family's money, this is one where I would trade their money on this trade because I think this is a great one. And that's how we came up with the moniker family money trade. So our trades, some of them are broken down into the best of the best, the special of the special. And this week, Netflix absolutely qualifies as one of those events. Their earnings trades are very reliable and have been very nicely profitable over the years. So let me show you the last trade we took on Netflix. It was January last quarter. And I'm not going to give away the exact setup, but I'm going to show you the way that everything came into place. So in order to do this trade, and this is just our final video that wrapped up the trade. In order to do this trade, the tools that we used We're the NinjaTrader platform. We have a multi-broker NinjaTrader account, so I can really give you another piece of good advice, another service that you can use that's almost free. A great company that has a very nice platform is Thinkorswim. Now, we don't use Thinkorswim for trading, but we use Thinkorswim to help us watch the stock prices. If you notice, I've got my Thinkorswim charts up and I'm watching them inside my Netflix, inside my NinjaTrader platform. I'm also using NinjaTrader because they have a multi-broker setup that you can subscribe to. You can become a multi-broker platform with NinjaTrader. You can also bring the stocks in that way. But trust me when I say Thinkorswim, their platform has a lot of earnings information. You could look up the times that earnings were released. And for $50, you can open a Thinkorswim account and just keep $50 in that account. You can look at futures current prices. You could look at options. Everyone knows they're real big on trading options. And even more so, they also have a lot of regular stocks, after hours, live pricing, $50, live real data on so many markets. It's a fantastic tool no matter what you do. But for us, trading earnings and being able to bring in a backup stock so we can watch those stock movements right before the earnings are released is a very good tool to help us watch the way the stocks are releasing. And let me show you what I mean and why it's important. So on the left side of my chart here, we're looking at the NQ. And you can see we have a little clock on the chart also. We know that Netflix, they're going to release their earnings somewhere near 4 p.m. right as the market closes. And we have a setup where we put our brackets above and below the current NQ price. And you're going to see my brackets going to show up on the chart right there. I have nice fat brackets above and below the NQ. Netflix, now you're watching the stock price on the right. I'm watching the NQ on the left. And Netflix earnings just came out last quarter. I have orders on the chart that our software automatically put on the chart when I got filled, and it shoots through all my targets. That was a $615 Netflix trade, live real money. You're watching it, and that trade was over in less than 26 seconds. Because watch what happened. Look, my orders were placed on the chart right there. 11 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds. There was no movement yet. It was 11 seconds after 4 p.m. The trade was over at 16:00:26:27. So it was like 15 seconds in the market for that trade. That's what we do. That's what we mean trading by appointment. I made an appointment to trade Netflix earnings, and that day I made $615 trading Netflix when that trade was over. It was an awesome trade. And the tools that I used, just to recap, earningswhispers.com, Ninja Traders platform, multi-broker account, not required if you have a TOS account. Thinkorswim. If you don't have a Thinkorswim account, it's good to get a multi-broker Ninja account so you can watch the live stock price. Those were the tools that I used, and of course, our software that automatically puts those little X's on the charts. Those are my orders. And then when the news came out, the earnings were released, it caused the NQ to explode in one direction, and that filled us in the trade and hit all our targets. That was an awesome Netflix trade. Now, I want to go through my charts a little bit, my slides a little bit, because we have Tesla. Now, Tesla is not a FANG stock, but Tesla is a big time earnings trade, and it's one of the big tech stocks. And what happened years ago, not even years ago, about a year and a half ago, Tesla used to release their earnings in a more random way. They would release them at 4:30, quarter to 5. And then about a year and a half ago, Tesla started releasing their earnings a little bit more similarly to the same time every earnings period. So we've been able to come up with a setup for trading Tesla. Let me show you a recent Tesla trade that I took, trading Tesla earnings. Also, trading the NQ because again, we've discovered that Tesla's stock price moves the NQ. Watch. So here are my X's, the little orders appear on the chart right before Tesla's earnings come out. You can see on the Thinkorswim chart that there was already a big pre-movement in Tesla's stock price, giving us a heads up because we've been doing this for so long. This gives us a heads up that we are pretty certain those stock earnings are going to come out instantly in a moment. And sure enough, that day the NQ actually moved a tiny bit before Tesla, but that trade was over in a matter of about 5 seconds, and that was a $645 Tesla earnings trade. So Tesla, it doesn't qualify as one of the FANG stocks, but it's definitely one of those big earnings trades, earnings companies that first off, everybody wants everything to do with Tesla because everybody's interested in Tesla. It's certainly a fascinating company, and trading their earnings is now a possibility using the NQ. Netflix, I've showed you. Microsoft, another company, and ironically, this is not a FANG stock because Microsoft is an M, Netflix is the FANG, but Microsoft usually has their earnings the same week as all the FANG stocks, sometimes the same day as some of the big tech stocks also. And obviously, Microsoft is a big tech stock. Now, sometimes, you'll make a smaller amount of money. This was not a huge mover, that particular trade. This was in April this was last year, and you could see we're watching Google and Microsoft because they were both scheduled for similar times. And what happened is Microsoft released their earnings first, and you could see as we get further along in our video, I'm going to move my chart, and you'll see that we're certain. See, Google did not move at the time that we made money. I was actually expecting Google to come out first. That day, Microsoft, which is hidden behind Google, came out first, and we made our $470 on Microsoft that day. So that was trading Microsoft's earning. And then, of course, I have to show you a Facebook trade. Let me show you a Facebook because Facebook, it's now Meta, okay? So it's Mang instead of Fang, but let me show you a Facebook setup. So Facebook, another one of those companies, big time earnings play. They also release their earnings very similarly to the same time of day. So we're able to have our software put these little X's on the chart automatically. The news comes out, boom, Facebook explodes to the short side. That was a $1,300 trade, and it was instant. It was literally a second. Watch how it happens. I'm not in the market yet. My orders are just on the chart. They're just on the chart. Then the news comes out, boom, I get pulled in short, and I'm making money on Facebook's earnings. So that was Facebook's. But you're getting the idea here. The idea is you want to see an explosion in price. You want to put your orders on the chart before the price explodes, okay? And you want to trade that movement. It's just like every news trade that we take, we have figured out a way to shrink it down and turn it in the earnings trades into appointment-based trades. So the concept is we make the appointment, we figure out by studying the reports, the earnings releases, what times they're going to release those earnings. And of course, if the markets are open and tradable, then we're going to try and come up with a system to trade these earnings. And what's nice about it is the members in our trade room are learning to trade these earnings with us. And it's fantastic because if you learn this skill, this is a skill that you could have, for the rest of your trading life. And I want to talk to you about the way that we want to present this to you. And we call it a challenge. So I'll get into that in a second. There was a couple of questions I wanted to ask. Can the entries be automated, dates, tickers with, Juan is asking if the entries can be automated, dates, tickers, etc. What we're automating, Juan, is if possible, we're automating the entry. And I say if possible because sometimes with earnings, you have to manipulate your orders because they don't always release their earnings at exactly the same time every time they do their earnings. So sometimes we actually have to physically move our orders around. And we've actually added a feature to our software. We have a button called the adjust button that lets us adjust our brackets automatically to help us trade these earnings trades. So because of the nature of the way that earnings are released, it all cannot be automated. I would think of it as semi-automated. Your targets are automatically put on the chart after you get filled. Your stop is automatically put on the chart after you get filled. Sometimes your orders are instant and put on the chart automatically. Other times we will actually manipulate our orders. And let me show you what I mean so it's clear. We also trade smaller stocks. In other words, there are events that might not be quite as explosive, for instance, as an Apple or as a Tesla. For instance, this was an AMD trade. And AMD, you notice it had a much smaller move. It didn't really explode the same way. We had to actually manage our way out of that trade for a small profit because we didn't get an explosion. So sometimes you have to learn to manage the trade. And of course, that's something else that we teach in our trade room. We teach how to manage these trades, how to manipulate your orders, how to move the orders. And I also want to show you a setup that we were testing, for instance, on Boeing. Okay. Boeing is a stock. They're not going to move the NQ because Boeing is not a NASDAQ. It's not a big weighted stock in the NASDAQ. Boeing will move the YM in our experience. So it's an early morning trade also. It's not an aftermarket trade. But you'll notice that we used our software to do something completely different than the way we trade, for instance, the Tesla earnings that I was showing you, or for instance, Netflix. Our software has the ability to create a simple range, okay? And that range is created so that if the range breaks by the number of ticks above the range or the number of ticks below the range, you will get filled in the direction of the movement of the market. So this particular morning, Boeing comes out with their earnings. It was, reasonably dramatic, not incredible. You can see the stock had a decent move and it pulled the price down of the YM. It didn't pull it down nearly as much as we would have liked, but it hit our first target. We had time to move our stop into a protective area, so it protected the profit. And actually, our software can do that automated. It can move the stop in an automated fashion also. But we were able to trade Boeing for a profit. Now, that day we were just testing because it was a new stock that we never traded before. But even if we're just testing, very often we open those trade rooms up to all our members, and we all learn together by testing different stocks that maybe we never traded before. When we first started doing earnings, all we did was trade 5, 6 stocks, and that was it. Now, David is saying I trade NQ, and a lot of times you don't get filled. So I would say that that's not correct, David. I would say 80 to 90% of the time we do get filled. We had a recent Apple trade where we didn't get filled, but more often than not on earnings, we get filled. So that actually is not correct. There are times when you'll trade a news trade or you'll trade a market that's just moving so fast, you might not get filled. It happens, and that it's not that it's that anything wrong or anything bad happens if you don't get filled. Sometimes a market moves very fast and you might not get filled. So, David, there's truth, of course, to what you're saying. But I would just modify that it's not a lot of the time. Most of the time, you do get filled. It's really rare not to get filled. That's the honest truth. And the same holds true for a CPI report or a PPI report, an FOMC statement, any of those high volatility events. They always have the possibility that they could move so fast that you might not get filled. And that brings up another educational piece of information that I'd like to tell you about that's very simple. If you like trading events, don't try to trade them with limit orders because limit orders, a lot of times a trader will use a limit order so that they think it's going to give them the opportunity to get filled at an exact price so it's safer. But it's not a question of whether it's safer or not. Sometimes when you use limit orders, those orders will get jumped. They'll get ignored because the market moves too fast. It just jumps the orders, or there's no liquidity there, and the market doesn't have a chance to move to the next order that is there. So we don't recommend using limits on events or on earnings type trades because then you will have a lot of trades that won't get filled. So another question that we have, what happens if earnings or guidance is bad? Does the software go short or long? So Ashik, I hope I pronounced your name properly. Absolutely. So, if you looked at that particular, I'll just show you a couple of quick trades. So we're on Apple, right? My slides are on Apple. And David, I might even have the Apple trade where we didn't get filled. I don't know. I don't know if I have that handy. But this was an Apple trade to answer Ashik. Now you notice the stock on this particular event, it moved up. So you would think that the earnings initially were good. But here's the key to why your question, Ashik, doesn't matter. We don't care if the earnings are good or bad. We don't care if the jobs report is good or bad. What we're looking for is a move in one direction from the news. And what we have discovered in all the years that we've been trading and that we've been around as a company, we're actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. I've been with the company more than 6 years. And over these 10 years, it's not whether the news is good or bad, it's whether the news is impactful enough to move the market. So you're going to get trades to the long side, we're going to get trades to the short side. We're going to get whipsaw trades that don't work and cost us a stop out losing trade. So it's not that every single trade will move perfectly in the direction we want it to go, but keep in mind, we are bracketing the market. So we don't care if it goes short or long. We just want it to move short or long in a good enough move to fill us and to go through our targets. And that's the key for the way that we're trading. That particular Apple trade, it was a long trade. The earnings might have turned out to be bad that quarter. They might have had good initial revenue and bad guidance. So it could change everything in a matter of minutes. And they have a press conference after the earnings, most companies. You could even find ways to trade those press conferences. But we're doing it by trading the release of the data because that, very honestly, is the DNA of our company. That's the way that we've been trading forever. We trade news releases, and we've just narrowed it down now into trading earnings. And what's awesome about the earnings, it starts next week. Netflix starts next week, next Tuesday. We have our first earnings trade room for next Netflix. And let me go through some more of my slides for everybody. So I think, let me just make sure I've answered everybody's questions. Give me 2 more seconds here. All right, just a couple of people that have asked about the brackets. And so here's the good news, everybody. Earnings season, like I said, it's here. It used to be that earnings season officially started with Alcoa. AA is their stock symbol. But we've really started to see that earnings season, you might say it started last Friday with some of the big banks. I think what we have, Goldman, I think was Friday, and Citi was Friday. Those Wells Fargo was Friday. Those companies move the markets. They move the YM less explosively than what you're seeing here, and we'll get into that a little bit as this presentation continues. So what's fantastic is earnings season is next week. And we want to teach you the reason that I'm so excited to be here today at earnings, that, for Traders Corner, is that because earnings is next week, it gives us a fantastic opportunity to teach you how to do this. And so we created an earnings challenge. So we've been doing these fantastic challenges at 10 minutes trades. And basically it's a way for us to give you a transformational trading experience. So look, that sounds all fancy and goofy and silly, and I know that. But really, what we're trying to do is just give you a system, a new methodology, something that'll transform your existing trading, teach you something so meaningful that you'll have a whole new method of trading going forward in your trading library, your arsenal of trades. So here's what's going on. Tuesday, April 18th, our challenge starts. And we're going to have those 5 main workshops: Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. Every one of those workshops we're going to make available in our trade room. So Donovan is saying, I live in the UK and don't have access to TOS. So Donovan, you don't need TOS. Let me make sure that I'm being clear. TOS Thinkorswim is just one of the tools that we use to watch the stock prices. Not necessary at all, just an extra bonus for people in the US or people that have access to it. We're doing everything that you're seeing here using the NinjaTrader platform, the NQ futures. That's what you need to do what we're doing, okay? That's the methodology we're using. And we're going to have 5 days that are coming up. We've got Netflix starting on April 18th. Then we've got Google is on the 25th. Facebook, Meta is the 26th. Amazon is the 27th. Apple is May 4th. Those 5 workshops are what make up our challenge. Okay. Now, it's also a challenge. A challenge is an educational experience. A challenge is a fun experience. It's also a challenge. In other words, we're challenging you to take steps so that you learn how to earn the money trading this whole new system that maybe you never traded again, never traded before. And we actually have real cash prizes. We have a $250 first prize, and also you can have a mentoring package with our owner, one of our trading partners, Eric, who works at and owns the company 10 Minute Trades. The second prize is $150 and a coaching call, and the third prize is $100. So it's also fun, and you can win the challenge. You can if you're the best challenger and do the best at the end of the challenge. There's a couple of rules how you can win the challenge. It's a lot of fun besides being educational and teaching you all about trading these earnings. So here's everything that I'm offering today. 5 earnings challenge sessions, okay? Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. We're valuing these earnings sessions at $99 a piece. And it's probably inexpensive, really. Because look, you saw the trades. You could have a really sweet $500 winning trade. So we're really undervaluing these sessions. And because we're doing this special with Traders Corner today, we're offering this deal, the whole challenge. You can enter the challenge for just $47. www.crushearnings.com. You'll have access to all of these sessions. Okay, you'll have access to our Facebook group, and it's the early bird pricing is going to end today. That $47 and all those trading sessions, www ends today is the key, www.crushearnings.com. It's going to go up to $97 after midnight tonight. Okay. So honestly, we're really raising the price. This is just for $47, just to learn the method of trading earnings. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's worth it a million times over. It's a fantastic, fun way to learn how to trade. I'm not done showing you trades. I want to show you some more trades. I never really showed you one of my favorite Apple trades, so let me show you a great Apple trade. Um, I didn't really discuss that last Apple trade that I showed you. So this was a recent Apple trade. Orders on the chart, okay? You've seen me put orders on the chart before. That was a $970 Apple trade, and that was a few seconds on the trade. We had another day that Apple and Amazon were both trading the same day. They trade pretty far apart, which is a bonus because you've got to be careful. And one of the things that we teach in the class is what if you have a setup and it's all taking place at the same time? You have Apple and Amazon at the same time. Let me show you this trade real quick because I'm running out of time. I want to make sure I get to everything. Boom. Apple's going to explode. That was Facebook exploding. It was over $600 trade. My Apple trade that day was $1,700. Price is going up to $97 tonight. www.crushearnings.com. 5 sessions. Don't forget, folks. And I have one last thing for everybody. If you sign up, we have a super fantastic VIP bonus offer. I'm just going to tell you this. Everybody wants to learn how to use our software. You saw how our software makes it much easier to trade these earnings. Take me up on this offer for $47. Learn how to trade earnings with us, and you're going to have a super offer to use our software for free for 30 days. Free for 30 days. You could trade the earnings with us. That's what I just want to let you know for sure. www.crushearnings.com. Any last questions? Are the workshops going to be recorded for people who have to work? Absolutely, Jeff. We will record everything. The recordings will be available to you. What data do we use? So Lawrence, Lawrence, you and I know each other. So I want to say hello. You've been a member before at 10-Minute Trades. We're using CQG data right now with NinjaTrader. You could use Rhythmic. Any of the normal data providers are fine for trading the way that we're trading. So folks, I'm pretty much out of time. I only have a minute. So let me just show you one last quick trade just to show you how much fun this can be. I rushed through those last trades. This was a Facebook trade that we took. And this one goes back a little further. We've been doing this for years. I mean, we go back to 2019 trade. We were doing this method of trading earnings. And then boom, there goes Facebook. And that was a smaller trade in those days. I think I made about $300 that day. Let's see what it winds up. I trailed my stop, $220 making on Facebook earnings back in April of 2021. So here's the link, everybody, www.crushearnings.com. We would love to see you join with us. You'll be in our trade room trading with us for just $47 if you sign up today. Midnight tonight, it goes up to $97. It's a fantastic way to trade earnings. It's a challenge. You'll learn. Also, you'll have a fantastic transformed experience and learn a new method of training, and you might have a chance to win some money in the challenge. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Rob, I hope I didn't lose track of the time. I think that's my 45 minutes, right? I want to thank you for having me. Okay.
Lee, you are absolutely perfect. Every time I hear your presentation, I love it even more. In those brackets, and just the fact that you're finding more and more and more ways to make a quick buck on an appointment is just awesome. It's fascinating how you trade futures by using earnings reports on stocks as a catalyst to drive price in your direction, up or down, and leverage your software to automatically enter the trade on the right side of the market
Well,
via your
thanks, Rob.
proprietary bracket
Thanks, Rob. You
strategy.
said it better than
Just
I ever
incredible.
could, and I'll see
Thank
you
you for
next
joining
time
us
on
today,
Traders
Lee.
Corner. Thanks very much.
Hey, thanks for making our audience such a generous offer and, the event, the everything. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lee Goldstein of 10-Minute Trades. You can learn more by clicking on the link in the chat box or going to 10minutetrades.com.
Thanks, Rob.
Lee, I hope you have a great weekend.